The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. We're on Mannin Line today. Open line through till 1, so whatever you want to talk about. Manx Development Corporation have been given evidence to the Economic Policy Review Committee, and they say they want some land from the government. They do more, but they need some land. A new board has been created to help the hospitality industry, and the Chief Minister has been talking about the population target as that conference has got underway. More importantly, 7 weeks tonight, it's bonfire night. That means 6 weeks this coming Thursday, it's Hop Tuné, and 7 weeks tonight, bonfire night. Getting ready for that. Some fireworks today then. David, how are you?
Great. I was up early this morning and took a trip out to the Mount Murray's I note from the olden days there to visit the conference and listen to the Chief Minister.
Yeah. And
praise goes from me, this is my opinion, I was only one of about maybe 120, 30 out there. There maybe were 20-odd civil servants running around looking after things, which was good. But James Davis, as the presenter, or the mediator for the thing, was top class. I'll give him about 8 for that one. And the Chief Minister, nearly 10. Got to give him the thing. Dramatic, talking to the audience, a lot of business people there. There was some Joe Public, the construction industry, where they've seen some guys from the construction industry and engineering and so forth. And probably some movers and shakers there. I'm not going to say them all.
How did the Chief Minister seem, David?
Fine. Excellent. He was coming in the same time as me. I wasn't stalking him. But he did turn around to me. He said, "Hello, David, how's it going?" Or something like that. He probably was more posher than that. But I said to him, "Good luck today. Good luck on the conference. Everybody's looking at you," which he is, the Chief Minister, and his Council of Ministers, and the members. There were some members there. They weren't all there. And what I think they forget, before I wander off too much, Andy, is it should be a team effort to pull things together for the Isle of Man. Like you said, we've got ups and downs and things happen, and we can't always be on top of it straight away. But we get there in the end, and with support from the community, businesses that people live on the island too, and the movers and shakers, we can get things done. And I thought it was a real positive message he's put out. But I'll wait for other people that may be there to comment as well. But he did mention about safety and security, which brightened my eyes a little bit too, of who's here, what people are coming to the Isle of Man, what are we going to do? And he mentioned about some strategy coming out from Jane Paul Wilson, which is the Home Affairs Minister there. We've always said, why can't we do check-in at the airport? Why can't we do check-in at the sea terminal using artificial intelligence cameras? We need to get into a modern society, don't we? And do people worry about if suddenly they say, you're stopped, and they say, can you just say, what's your name? You know, how many people walk around now at work and whatever with tags on them?
Yeah.
Lanyards, there's all sorts of things. I'm sure I've never looked at the camera there to see if Andy Wint's got one. Have you got a pass?
Oh no, I think I get one in about 5 years' time when you've done. You're not
at the top.
No, I'm not
at the top of the tree.
I'm not far up the tree. No.
Yeah, but if I could say to people there, the only little bit of negativity was really, but he did promise that his ministers were going to go out to the communities. So that ticks a box for the people who couldn't attend because it's a working day. I don't think it was live streamed, which would have been a possibility in the future, because these things do happen now. And as I say, James Davis carried it forward. They asked questions on the floor. I can't believe that you would think there would be there was 5 or 6 questions from the floor, and the beautiful question was a fellow who was obviously not Manx. I don't think he was born and bred here anyway, but he said, what are you worried about? The Isle of Man's great great place to be, and where would you bring your kids up? And that tapped it off for me. He got a clap and a round of applause. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thanks for that, David.
Bye.
Good to hear from you. It's 11 minutes past 12. Well, if you've been to the conference today, as David has, if you've got anything to report back, and well done. I'm sure James Davis is doing a fine job. Very professional guy. So we'll hear more about it. In fact, we'll hear a bit what the Chief Minister had to say during the opening minutes of today's government conference. Alfred Cannon, MHK, was asked about the much publicised target of 100,000 people for the population of the Isle of Man, growing the population by 15,000 people. All right, this is what Mr. Cannon had to say.
This whole strategy is about the working population, is about filling jobs, is about increasing the and redressing some of the challenges that we are facing if we just stood still and allowed the population to all increase far beyond that sort of balance between the dependent population, either non-working population, and the population that is in employment. And in order to avoid pushing into an increasingly likely situation where that working population was shouldering a heavier and heavier burden, we're taking those steps to ensure that that working population, the younger generation effectively, is proportionately balanced, but also that we grow the economy and we provide the capability for business to fill its skills gaps, and also for us hopefully to retain more of our younger people on the island.
So that's the primary focus now. The goalposts have changed slightly, the focus has changed slightly, or it's evolved, I should say.
Well, it never was about just population growth, and I think government probably did not get its message right. It was always about growing the working population on the island to ensure that we appropriately tackled what was clearly a looming challenge for everybody in the next 10, 15, 20 years, and we needed to start that now, but we also needed to start it because actually, the need for skills, the need for business growth, the demand levels, post-COVID particularly are there, given that a lot of people have left and exited the workforce as well.
There's Mr. Cannon, just part of what he had to say this morning. We've got Manx Radio microphones there, so we'll be aiming to hear a lot more from that over the next couple of days, just to see what it is, where the Council of Ministers see this. And remember, it is a Council of Ministers. The Chief Minister is in charge, but there are other ministers who've got input. So we'll see. As we, there's that thumping overspend from Manx Care. At the moment, bus services under strength. You've got the prom not really finished, gloomy lighting on Douglas Promenade, that much vaunted DOI anti-private motorist policy, go public transport or active transport, and our somewhat uncertain boat service at the moment. So domestic uncertainty, really, that's what we have at the moment. It will be interesting to see. I mean, Mr. Cannon has pointed out that we're in an era of global instability, so we should expect a bit of domestic uncertainty. We are a relatively affluent Isle of Man, and certainly employment is high on the Isle of Man. But where do we go? Bonzo's on now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello, yes. I was just listening, of course, to Alf there. Yes, it's uncanny how through a PA he manages to sound like David Brent from The Office. And similar vocabulary, I'm afraid, with everything's challenges, blah, we have to look for synergies and that sort of thing. No, it's still living in the continuing delusion. And listening to David Quirk, I thought, yes, well, I was wondering what they were putting in the coffee. Obviously, the mind control drug to make everyone go, oh, yeah, isn't it marvellous? Because it isn't. It's absolutely not. And 120 people, not from the photograph I saw from Manx Radio on your website. It says about 75, 80. I've had a few photos and things sent to me from people who've been attending it, and it is the same as it ever was, death by PowerPoint buzzword fest, which simply will fail to address any of the problems. But that's how the people who are there like it, because they are part of the welfare state client group. And So long as everything is going okay and they're not being taxed very much, etc., that's fine by them.
So where do we go? I mean, does your view of the Isle of Man diverge from the Council of Ministers and where you think the Chief Minister is aiming us?
Well, I think diverge is putting it mildly. It is pretty much diametrically opposed to it, because strangely enough, it's looking at it through the right end of the telescope. He doesn't appreciate, and will never, it will seem, as indeed much of the government doesn't, that there is one very basic thing that needs to happen, and that is proper progressive taxation. We can still remain tax competitive, but taxes are the price that we pay for a civilized society, as I think the Supreme Court judge said of such things, which is actually inscribed on the porch of the building that the American IRS live in. Yes, we have to have that. There's a gap, and indeed I'm writing for somebody else about this. There's a gap of probably about 5% of GDP, which we could tax and then have revenue upon, which wouldn't affect tax competitiveness that much, and certainly wouldn't then affect those on lower and middle incomes. And that 5% kind of tax gap, once you then work out on the taxation, comes out to about £200 million a year. Now that, I think we can see when you look at various budgets and how they state that they're underfunded, I think you can see that, yes, that explains it, doesn't it? That explains
who'd pay more tax?
That explains.
Who'd pay more tax, Bonzo?
Well, firstly, there's the issue of corporation tax, which will have to be introduced more widely anyway. And secondly, things like all through national insurance, no upper earnings limit. And also things like a much more realistic upper tax band, and certainly no tax cap.
And do you think, that would have an adverse effect?
What? No tax cap?
No, I mean an adverse effect on, because obviously since, what was it, the mid-1960s, when the Lieutenant Governor Ronald Garvey pointed out to the then administration that they didn't have to impose super tax, which was being imposed in the UK at the time, and that's really when the Isle of Man started to take advantage of its advantages with a low tax jurisdiction. We're obviously known as a low tax jurisdiction. Do you think your plan would drive a cart and horses through it?
Well, low tax jurisdiction is a relative term. And that's how we operate tax competitiveness. There's obviously going to be a bit more taxation in the UK. But the thing is, we can still be a comparatively low tax economy without beggaring ourselves, which is what we're doing now. And you were making comments about, we're a relatively affluent island. And well, yes, we are, but tell that to more than half the population of the Isle of Man, who don't feel very affluent at all.
No, that's point taken. It is a relative term. However, we have full employment. There are people who are unemployed, and we've got a lot of jobs that are vacant at the moment. They always talk about the skills gap.
We have full employment, but we have underemployment. In that we have quite qualified people doing jobs which don't require that kind of level of qualification.
Yeah.
And we also have people who are doing two jobs at the same time in order to get by. So that's not really full employment. There's a lot of disguised under and non-employment in the economy. So I don't agree with those figures at all. It's like the myth of the vacancies at Department of Employment. which are then handed out by various agencies, and they will be 4 different agencies effectively advertising the same job, but they'll be counted as 4. So, yes, of course, we have loads of vacancies that we have to fill. No, we don't, actually. But it suits you to count it in that way, so that then can place downward pressure on wages.
So just get that straight then. So that when they always talk about, over 1,000 vacancies, you think there aren't over 1,000 vacancies?
Well, they are. To be fair, they are the 1,000 vacancies registered with her. Right? So various agencies could register the same job, but it will be counted as one job being registered. From discrete job from each agency, so it will be treble counted or more.
So I wonder why the government doesn't say that. Why they don't say that the official number is X, although that may be inflated by it being reported many times by the agencies.
Because it doesn't suit them to do so. It doesn't. That would not paint the right picture.
And what's your opinion of higher taxation scaring off high net worth individuals?
It depends how high it is. I think this myth that if we put up the top rate of tax by anything, that everyone will be fleeing to Ronald's Way and hanging off the skids of helicopters with their suitcases full of money falling out, like the flight from Saigon or the flight from Kabul or something. That's not going to happen. And people actually, high net worth individuals, don't live here for the nightlife or the weather. They live here because it is the nearest tax competitive jurisdiction to the UK. And unfortunately, the advantages of having that ability to be near the UK are decreasing by the day, because if they don't have a private jet, there's no way they can't depend on being able to get on and off the island.
What do you expect to come out of the conference, Bonzo?
What's the quotation? Sound of fury and things signifying nothing.
Well, obviously something's got to happen, because times are tough at the moment and maybe getting tougher, and we have lots of loose ends that need tightening up. Something
has to happen, but the party congress isn't it. It's about how marvellous we are. The real facts will have to be faced, of course, after on Hop Tune after Rachel Reeves' budget in the UK.
Okay, I've had a message in from obviously one of your fans saying, why isn't Bonzo at the conference?
Because I went to the first one briefly, and the first one that they held briefly, and it exceeded my low expectations of it. It was buzzword bingo and death by PowerPoint. It reminded me very much of the meeting that we've seen Mad Men. There's the meeting towards the end of the series where Don Draper goes to this big meeting at McCann Erickson for a campaign for Miller Lite, and he takes one look at it and he walks out, and it's that kind of horror. It's very much an exercise in, you could be kind and say it's an exercise in public relations. Many more people would say it's an exercise in self-aggrandizement and self-delusion.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate it, Bonzo. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, then.
Good to hear from you. It's 12:25. Here's a note in from Tony, who said, I've checked with 2 surgeries and no word on the vaccines being available. This is for shingles vaccine. According to what I've been told, surgeries are still waiting for instructions from Manx Care. So who's telling the truth? Is there shingles vaccine on the Isle of Man? Have you had a shingles vaccine? If you did, when did you have it? Are there any surgeries that are giving shingles vaccine? Tony would like to know. Government wants to develop and use AI and wants to increase the workforce. These 2 aims says G don't seem to reconcile, in G's opinion anyway. AI is about being smarter with a smaller workforce, perhaps another flawed strategy, along with Manx Care, climate and transport. We'll find out more. Chief Minister's going to be on week on Friday. This Friday, Tim Johnston and Mark Lewin from Department for Enterprise. Next Tuesday, a week today, David Ashford's on, Chair of Housing and Communities. And a week on Friday, Alfred Cannon, MHK Chief Minister, will be on. And the Monday after that, the 1st of October, Deborah Heather and Ranald Caldwell. Deborah is Chief Exec, Ranald is Chairman of Visit Isle of Man. So we'll be finding out how the summer of 2024 has been and what there are plans for the future. Upcoming on Mannin Line, but we're open line today. Tony's with us now. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy. I think you've already asked the question, but I'd like to ask the audience out there, does anybody know anyone who's had a shingles injection recently? Because I've been told by the health minister that, and he's been told by Manx Care, of course, who are very reliable, I understand, in what they say, that the shingles vaccines are now available at surgeries, etc., etc. And the email he sent was a month ago. Now, I've checked with 2 surgeries, and nobody knows anything about it because they're waiting for Manx Care.
So the minister, is he your MHK?
Yes, he is.
So your MHK and the minister said that the shingles vaccine is here.
According to Manx Care, he says.
Right.
I've sent you the email. So my question is, who is telling lies and what is going to happen? Is Alf Cannon actually going to do something about this? Or is he just going to say, well, it's all in process, like I keep getting from everybody else? And this is not for me. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Manx Care is completely falling apart, and yet nobody seems to recognise it or wants to do anything about it.
Well, the shingles vaccine is quite important, isn't it? I mean, there is quite a lot of chickenpox and shingles around anyway.
Right, there's quite a few people out there who, if they get shingles, are going to be in really bad shape.
Yep.
Because they're not protected, because they're vulnerable, put it that way, right? And if you do get shingles, that increases your chance of getting dementia. So another reason why you should try and get shingles vaccines out there as soon as possible. But the Manx Care just don't seem to be able to do anything at all. And that's why I've said before, we need to get rid of it. It needs to be taken to pieces and do something completely different. It's an administration issue at Manx Care. Everything is administrative. The frontline staff are struggling because there's not enough of them. But we've got hundreds of jobs, I would imagine, probably part of Alf Cannon's list of jobs, as administrators. And the board, who are responsible, don't want to be criticised. That's what it comes across to me. I was told we shouldn't be... That's what they said the other day, wasn't it? That they shouldn't be getting criticised.
Yeah, they took it personally, I think.
Well, then they shouldn't be in the job. If they did their job, they wouldn't get criticised, would they? And the problem is they are not doing their job.
Well, you would assume that they'd heard of social media, and you would assume that if they're seen, if there's been a failing within the organisation, that social media was going to do its very worst and its very best. So, I mean, surely they knew that was going to come.
Yeah, but I think they're in denial. I'll be honest with you, Andy. I don't think any of the people on that board think there's anything wrong. They all think they're doing a great job.
Oh, and they think we shouldn't get above ourselves. What's it got to do with us? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're doing a great job. Why are you criticising us? And the answer is because you are not looking at the problems you've got. The whole systems don't work. There is no cohesion between hospital appointments and surgeries. So if you go to the hospital and get something done, the surgery have to wait for a snail mail letter to turn up, if it ever turns up, to tell them what you've had done. It's pathetic in this day and age. Pathetic.
Okay, right. We'll put an appeal out then.
Email. An email would work. We're not going to do that.
We'll put an appeal out then. If anybody's anybody's seen a shingles vaccine anywhere, if anybody can tell us, then we'd like to know. All right.
Yes, that's great, Andy. Thank you very much. And Alf needs to decide what it is he's going to do with the health service and get on with it.
All right.
Instead of talking about it.
Thanks for that.
Take care.
Cheers now, 29 minutes before 1. Andy says, 927, if Manxgate didn't overspend, the horse tramway would have been through to the steam railway by now, says Bill. I take your point, but obviously you can't chop and change with budgets. Are there new benches on the prom imported from Italy? If so, how much do they cost? Is there nobody on the Isle of Man who can make benches, says Liz D. Is it true we've got Italian benches on the prom? Well, if the Chief Minister, says Dave on 692, needs to start by cutting the ever-increasing number of government employees. These people would then be available to fill the vacancies in the private sector. You will then not burden further the shortfall in services. Maybe they should retrain as dentists or air traffic controllers. Oh, crikey, don't start. So, what's going to happen? I mean, what do you think of Bonzo's idea that we should put tax up? Put tax up. He called it a fairer tax economy. That's what he wants. Basically, more taxes. Taxes won't go down. Any thoughts on this? An average household has a wage coming in, and most keep to a budget if their income. If these households ask for a 10% pay rise, what happens if everything goes up? What about the shortfall, says Des? And we have full employment because we have thousands of financially unviable jobs, either casual or zero-hour contracts on minimum wage. The economy is producing jobs, not careers. There are very few full-time, financially viable or training positions that will produce credible, useful employment for the future economy that the Isle of Man will have, says 109. Interesting word, career. I don't know whether you have ever looked up the word career. Look in the dictionary. It says to travel rapidly, usually downhill. I'm joking, but you get the point. I got the letter for the shingles vaccine. I binned it, says Daphne. Is that true? Where are they? Where are the shingles vaccines? Has anybody had one? My wife got a text from Village Walk yesterday, says Colin, to book an appointment for a shingles jab. She rang up, got an appointment for the 1st of October. So we're talking, 3-4 weeks away. I had my injection 3 years ago for shingles at the Kensington practice, says Charlie. Can you get shingles if you have not had chickenpox? I believe you can. Shingles is, roughly speaking, adult chickenpox, isn't it? But there's lots of it around. I have to tell you, my 2 grandsons got the devil of a dose of chickenpox a few weeks ago. It was, and then my son-in-law then got shingles. So there is shingles around, there is chickenpox around. If you go to schools, they'll tell you that chickenpox is around. Is it just me? Or does Alf Cannon has the same voice as Keir Starmer? I don't know. No, it's his genuine voice. It's not AI. Here's a note in that just says, why are people worrying about shingles so much? Is it rife here? Well, no, it's around. 775. It is around. Certainly, chickenpox is certainly around the schools. And as Tony was saying, chickenpox in adults can be extremely painful and can cause hazards to health. Whatever happened to the plans for building a cannabis farm? Also, bus vanning starting to get as bad as the steam packet, says 470. Well, there were 2, weren't there? There was going to be a kind of outdoor cannabis farm and the indoor cannabis farm, which was going to be one, I think, that Peel Holdings were going to be doing up by the Cool Roundabout. That was a medicinal one where they were going to be harvesting the cannabinoids at all hours of day and night. That seems to have taken a back door at the moment, but we'll certainly keep an eye on it. But heard nothing from them. Oh, by the way, you want to know this if you're on the Steam Packet. Steam Packet's announced that from now passengers will be able to book offer fares right up to the point of departure, subject to availability. The packets say it comes as part of their ongoing commitment to improve customer service and responding to passenger comments. Following an input from a recent island-wide survey, they've decided to remove the 24-hour booking restriction for foot passengers and the 48-hour restriction for vehicles. The packets say they remain committed to acting on feedback and promise further updates and improvements will be announced in due course. So if that's affected you before, it won't affect you anymore. Thank you to Malcolm, who sent me his own mission statement in, and he says, I, Malcolm, am committed to delivering world-class cross-sectoral outcomes driven by the pursuit of excellence in developing greenfield opportunities through blue sky thinking by empowering my staff in a meaningful partnership relationship with stakeholders and customers to achieve a 21st century community interface, says Malcolm. Lots of words means absolutely nothing.
The only radio station that's Manx, and we're proud of it. Celebrating 60 years, this is Manx Radio.
I'm very keen on key stakeholders.
Today, Manx Petroleum keeps our island moving. For the drivers, for the school runners, for the deliverers, and the adrenaline seekers. Today and every day, the island's longest-serving distributor will be powering thousands of journeys with our premium road fuels. Manx Petroleum, always here for you. Fill up now or visit mp.im.
Facing a life-limiting illness can be overwhelming, both for the patient and their loved ones. Hospice Isle of Man steps in during this critical time, making the difference by prioritising quality of life. Our approach goes far beyond simply treating the physical symptoms of illness, offering a holistic range of support services for the entire family and carers. We rely on your support to help us care when there is no cure. Visit hospice.org.im to find out how you can help.
People of the Isle of Man, are you thinking of buying or selling a home? Well, wait! You need to talk to the conveyancing team at LVW Law. LVW Law! They've over 20 years of experience and know what they're talking about. They're friendly and efficient. Do not buy or sell a property without calling LVW Law on 836757 for a no-obligation quote. LVW Law.
The Ramsey Garden Centre sale is now on, featuring a huge range of garden items at vastly reduced prices. Don't delay. Grab a garden bargain now. There has never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week on Albert Road, Ramsey.
Coming up, we have another winning weekend here on Manx Radio. And this time, we're giving you the chance to win £200 to spend in-store at B&B Furniture. All you have to do is listen out for a winning question, which we'll ask on air right across the weekend. And once you've heard it, text your answer to 166 177. B&B Furniture is celebrating over 45 years of serving the island with lots of anniversary offers. And to mark 30 years in their purpose-built store, they're offering up to 30% off selected items. Make this your winning weekend with B&B Furniture and your nation station Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. Thanks for joining Manx Radio. And shingles is about because of an intake of people from less healthy countries. How do you know that, Des? Is that true? Oh, that's just your opinion, I take it, or skeet. Or are the drug companies not making as much money as COVID these days? Well, it's around. I mean, shingles, lots of childhood chicken pox is around, certainly. That's around, but then again, it's the start of the term, so then maybe that's got to do with it. I wonder how much the conference at the Comis has cost. They could have saved money by using the villa, says Terry Kate. Well, not really, because they still had to pay for the villa. They cross-paid. One department charged another department. Do you remember they put the cost out when it was at the villa last time? So the Chief Minister said it's cheaper by using it at the Comis, and because the Villa Marina is a big barn of a place, they were, it was a bit spacious, to say the least. However, there we are. It's at the Comis. That's what it is. And we'll hear more today and tomorrow. It will be interesting to see what's happening with this so-called security announcement that Jane Paul Wilson is making. It's a shingles jab is a one-time thing, says 121. I had mine years ago. Well, I hope you're well. Shingles is the herpes virus, says Si. It's well, I'll bow to your medical qualifications, Si, if that's true. But obviously it is related to chickenpox. More messages in. I know I'm lucky, but I saw my NHS dentist and had a cataract operation done by Synaptic team in March. I understand we spend about 5% of the Isle of Man's GDP on health and social care, whereas most European countries like France and Germany spend more like 10%. It seems our NHS may have been underfunded over the years, says Muriel. Talk about money. What about the millions that they spent on the silt out of the harbour in Peel and putting it into a field by me, says Jeff. This is still costing us taxpayers money, and it's a joke, really. What do we know, says 252. We do know that they're underfunded. This is Manxcare because the Michaels report made recommendations about funding and a formula for it. 252 says Mr. Cannon is underfunding Manxcare by the very formula that he agreed to. It would be nice to hear this because you get the feeling that the stuff that Manxcare isn't saying because it doesn't want to say it in public. But something is going wrong somewhere, and Manxcare, which of course we pay for, is either not able to do its job properly or can't do its job properly, but it will be nice to know. Active Travel, talking about the DOI's stated aim, really, to push us away from private cars. Active travel is an absolute no-go on the Isle of Man. The basic premise of reducing car use is a good one, but there needs to be a massive investment in the bus network and, to a lesser extent, the tram and train network. Direct, non-stop buses from Peel, Ramsey, Castletown and Port Erin to Douglas are a must, with services every 15 minutes for a 2-hour window between 7 and 9 and 4:30 and 6:30. Only then will the government reduce car use. And if they do want to push us towards active travel and public transport, I mean, it will be nice to know. And it will be interesting to know what their plan is. And also, as well as electric vehicles, is there a plan for... if you wanted a charger on your drive, is there a government subsidy for it? Whether the government would say, whether the Climate Change Committee would say, the first 1,000 people who want one will get one half price. Because there is no better way to entice someone to get an electric vehicle than for them to have a charger on their drive. Let's face it, if you get an electric charger on your drive, the next vehicle that you buy is going to be an electric vehicle, because you'd look a bit of a prat, wouldn't you, having an electric charger and then buying a diesel? Because people would say, well, what's that for? So where are the plans? What are the plans to get us into active travel or to public transport or to electric vehicles? That's a winner for the government holding it at Mount Murray, Comiss, Ian, rather than the Villa. It suits them to have it somewhere where the proletariat, my word, can't get to it easily, so they don't have annoying questions about what the government see as the wonderful Isle of Man where everything is perfect. Are you saying everything's perfect, Ian? Is everything perfect on the Isle of Man? So why are people worrying about shingles, says 775. Well, it's not very pleasant, to be quite honest, but it will be interesting to see if Manxcare say there is a shingles vaccine on the Isle of Man, when it's going to start rolling out. And as that lady said, if it's October at Village Walk in Oncombe, where else it's going to be? Still, lots of people asking about Tesco deliveries. I'm sorry, I have no sway with Tesco. If you can't get to a delivery, it's not my fault. But there are other people who will deliver. The buses along with the airport and the pier are a shambles. Which pier, Tony? Poor management all round. It's now getting better. It's getting better now. Time for a clear out of the dead wood. Is it true that the cancellation of the buses over the weekend was due to high winds at Heysham? No, I don't think it was. The Steam Packet statement regarding their cancellations, says this correspondent, I'm not an expert at all I know is facts. Sometimes the Mannin couldn't sail, sometimes nothing sailed. The traditional vessels, including the Ben, often did sail when the Sea Cats couldn't. In my 40 years of living here, I don't remember any traditional vessel, the Ben or anything else, being cancelled and the Sea Cat going. This also happened the other day. The Manxman didn't go to Heysham, and Mannin did go to Liverpool. Heysham Harbour's the same as it ever was. Wind direction effect on the harbours is the same. The captains are trained. The only thing that's changed is the boat. Steam Packet needs to stop patronising the public with pseudo-technical explanations or operational excuses and just say it straight. It's the ridiculous excuses that no one believes that winds the public up. If the wind's in the wrong direction and the boat's too big because of the wind being in that direction, why don't they just say that's what it is? We all know that there's a shallow channel going into Heysham, so if you've bought a big boat that's going to get blown about easily, why don't they just say it? MHKs need to demand the truth. Tell the public, stop hiding behind the arm's length nonsense and take control. Thank you, Jane. And more messages coming in about wind turbines. To counter the misinformation, the turbines in China which blew down were not the typhoon-proof ones which did survive the storm. The wind farm was undergoing upgrades at the time and were due to install the new turbines. Erie Stain, says Texter 221, and of course we've still got Erie Stain in the background. Erie Stain's far from done. The plans are due to be submitted in the new year after consultation. Can we have, says 768, a freedom of information request about the operational costs of government per week? Oh, crikey. All I see is a waste of time in everything from the NHS, that's Manx Care, to the prom. We need a new broom. Somebody with vision for the Isle of Man going forward. We need this. We need Wilf as Chief Minister. Thank you for that. Thank you, 768. I agree with your caller last week. The lighting on the promenade, Douglas Promenade, is a disaster. On Loch Promenade, the lights in the gardens are as far away from the road as you can get, says Alan. Douglas really is dingy.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631. The Sunday Chill Out.
Hi, this is Chris Pearson from The Chill Out Show. On Sunday 22nd September, we'll be marking the end of summer with a live outside broadcast from the Cafe at the Sound between 6 and 9. Why not come and join us for some fantastic sunset views over the Calf for the autumn equinox? With drinks and chilled out tunes, the night is free, but we'll be raising cash for the I'll Listen charity. The Chill Out Show at the Cafe at the Sound this Sunday from 6 p.m.
Flocking to the sea. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good to have you along. Thanks for being with Manx Radio. I've just got a message in from the people at Bishop's Court Farm in Kirkmichael, just to say Saturday 21st and Sunday 22nd. That's this Saturday and Sunday. It's the Mannin Sheepdog Trials, 9:30 to 4 p.m. Free entry, Bishop's Court Farm in Kirkmichael. Hope you have fun. Thanks for that. Mr. Hooper assures the public the new role created in Manx Care, the new roles aren't new roles, they're just existing roles, but they need a person to fill the position which is already filled. Is that true? Says David. So it's not a new role, but wasn't there before. And regarding, we were talking about Calmac and Northlink ferries and the cost of going from the Shetlands to Aberdeen. Calmac and Northlink ferries share £150 million per year government subsidy to run that, so hence the cheaper fares. I don't think we could afford to subsidise the steam packet to that degree. EVs are on the way out, unless you're looking for one, says Des. How'd you make that out, Des? I got shingles very badly after my second COVID jab, and I firmly believe there's a link, says Ruby on 009. Until COVID, shingles was never mentioned. Then they start promoting the jab on adverts on TV. I don't know whether you've seen, or there was a message in News at 12 that in the UK, overall vaccination rates are down in the UK. Of course, up until COVID, until the kind of furore over COVID vaccinations were always seen as something that were uniformly good. Everybody went for a vaccination. Certainly anybody who went to an exotic destination on holiday couldn't wait to get the jabs because you couldn't go without the jabs. So, but anyway, that's the news from the UK, that the vaccination rate has gone down. One thing I know, after the Chief Minister makes his big announcement for the restructuring of Manxcare, there'll definitely be more directors. We used to run Nobles with a board of 4 or 5 board members. Now, with all the non-execs living across and the ones at the DHSC, there's the best part of 40 board members. 40 board members in health, other than counting the growing waiting list and all the money that they waste. So what do they all do? I'm sure there'll be even more by the end of the conference. And Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I've just heard one of the remarks on your programme there that shingles is relatively new. My father had shingles many, many years ago because he passed away 30-odd years ago, so you can take that as part of a sequence. And I personally had it before I retired, and I retired in 2008. And believe me, it's not a pleasant disease. The actual thing starts off like a flu and various aspects, but it's after you get down through the system, because I think it affects the nerves.
It does. Well, it's stored. Apparently, it's stored in the spine, in the vertebrae in the spine.
Well, that's where I first suspected this, and the doctor told me it was shingles, and I was left with a small scab, and I now have a scar at the bottom of my spine, just on my hips. But it's not that afterwards. It was for 6 weeks afterwards, I could not get comfortable standing, sitting, lying, anything like that because of the nerve endings, I'm assuming. And it was like having neuralgia in one of my legs. It was constant day and night. So anybody, I'm not a great advocate of injections, etc., but if you feel like you need and you can get the shingles vaccination, by all means do so. But as I say, it's one of these things, I don't know, they weren't going to bring it to the island. That was the government said they weren't going to. Now they seem to have changed their mind. But believe me, I can rest assured that this is not what you want to get. And if you get it in the face, like a friend of ours, she got it in the face, and it's like Bell's palsy, where you have a sort of paralysis, and you can go blind with it quite easily.
Oh, I mean, as you say, shingles can be very mild, and it can be absolutely gangbusting. It can be absolutely vicious and pain like you've never known sometimes.
Exactly. Well, that's what this was. It was after the actual disease part of it, the virus part of it, seemingly had finished, like having flu and getting over flu. But the next 6 weeks, and believe me, it was all day and night. And no matter where you lay, sat, stood, or otherwise, you could not get comfortable. It eased away eventually, and I haven't had any touch wood since. Although I haven't had the vaccination, I can say that. But if you do feel like you would need it, by all means go for it.
Is it true that if you've had shingles, you don't get it again?
I don't know, but I think you can do. You can. It's something that lies dormant within the body.
Yeah.
And it can come back any time. That is from what I've been led to believe. I'm not of any medical expertise. It's just that I have suffered it, and I would not want anybody else to go through the same thing.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that, Howard. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, take care.
All right, it's 5-1 now on Manx Radio. I was in the sea terminal, says 681, on Saturday. Armed police were there, sidearms. They came in to order cups of coffee. Since then, I've spoken to a friend in the constabulary. They say there are some police permanently armed, a permanently armed unit on duty all day, all night. Is this necessary? Is it true? Wow. Here's a message in that just says vaccinations have decreased because of the COVID jabs, which I think weren't vaccines, says 488, and not safe or effective. And the lies that we were told. No more jabs for a lot of people from here on in until the government comes clean and admits that they lied. Not going to happen. That's an anonymous one from 488, and that's their opinion. Well, it seems, doesn't it, since COVID and the COVID vaccination, lots of people have taken very much against the whole notion of vaccinations, whereas pre-COVID, most people took them. And certainly for children and babies, vaccinations de rigueur. It's just what happened. So there seems to have been, I don't know whether you agree, has there been a cultural shift in the attitude towards vaccinations? And if it has been, was it because of COVID and the varying differences of opinions that happened during COVID? If you've got any thoughts on it, by the way, text, email, call and WhatsApp. Out of hours, you know the number, don't you? 682-631 is the answer phone number. And the email out of hours is manninline@manxradio.com. While we're on the air, it's studio@manxradio.com. China has a graveyard of EVs. Well, they make the most of them, don't they? An American car salesman can't move EVs. Thank you. Are you in the trade, Desmond? Do you sell EVs? You haven't got a yard of them to sell, have you? I've had shingles 3 times, says this texter. Not pleasant. Tell me about the shingles vaccination if you've been offered or you've had one. Drop me a note, will you? Thanks to Howard on the phones today. Back tomorrow. Open line.
WINT.